You are tuned into Mostly Humans. The opinions and views shared by the hosts of this podcast are uniquely their own and do not reflect the view or opinions of the companies they work for. P.S. Don't sue or fire us. Thanks so much. Now let's get into the episode.
I keep thinking of that guy from SpongeBob, the boss, who's like the crab.
Yes.
What's his name? Do you remember that guy's name?
Are we talking about Mr. Crab, the restaurant owner?
Mr. Crab. Okay, his name is Mr.
Mr. Crab. Yeah, Krabby Patties.
Yes, everyone. Mr. Crab and all of his Krabby Patties have their own social network.
All right. Welcome back to Mostly Humans. I am one of your hosts, Justin Wright, joined by my co-host, Matt Bigelow. Exciting topic today. Matt, how you doing? How's the week been?
I'm just really ready for this cold weather to be gone. I know it's on a whole nother level with you. You guys have reached like 1 and 2 degrees Fahrenheit recently.
Yeah, I've lived in the Northeast my entire life, and I still get fooled. Okay, Christmas has happened, New Year's, now it's going to get better, and you forget how bad end of January and February is in terms of snow, temperature, and things. And then this weekend, it's going to be, I think it's going to be the coldest day on record in like 22 years or something up here. So that's great. Like that.
Oh my gosh. I have a question for you.
Yes.
It's a big day. Super Bowl Eve, man, for you.
It is Super Bowl Eve when we're recording this. Yes.
And a birthday Eve?
And a birthday Eve. Yeah, look at me. Made it.
Okay. So big day for you tomorrow, clearly.
It's what is exciting, yes.
What is your prediction for the Super Bowl? I want win-loss, and I want the points. And jinxes aren't real. You cannot jinx the outcome. What do you really think's going down?
So statistically, and the Vegas odds are that the Seahawks are going to win, right? But I distinctly remember the Atlanta comeback game, and New England's got this thing where we just figure out a way to get it done. I think Vrabel's got these guys fired up. I think the Super Bowl is a whole nother level. I think it's going to be very, very tight. I think you're looking at I want to say it's going to be like a 17-14 kind of game, and New England pulls it out, but I think it's going to be a battle.
Well, our listeners, by the time they hear this, it'll probably be the day after the Super Bowl. So we will find out if you have a crystal ball for the future. My prediction, first of all, I think it is criminal that TreVeyon Henderson is not getting the ball constantly. Like, this guy is Marshall Faulk level nasty, like
yes.
Early Saquon level nasty, like really, really good. This is a lot to say, but if TreVeyon somehow gets north of 17 touches, Patriots win by 2 touchdowns.
Wow. Okay.
That is my prediction. And I have a feeling they've been sleeping on TreVeyon for like weeks, like 6 weeks. It's like Ramondre up the middle, 1 yard in a cloud of dust. It's like, what are we doing? I feel like some of that might be intentional, and they might like flip the game plan on its head and catch Seattle sleeping with TreVeyon. So
yeah,
I actually would almost be happy for the Patriots if TreVeyon is the reason why they win, because I like this guy so much. Honestly, if they give the ball to Ramondre, I just don't think they can get their claws on him. And today we're talking about ClawdBot.
Wow. What a transition. I didn't even see that coming, which is saying something.
It came to me 30 seconds ago.
Yes, we are talking about ClawdBot.
Yeah, so we're actually skipping ahead on a couple episodes that we've recorded just to stay topical, because we want to make sure that the listeners of this podcast get practical, sensical information about what's going on out there. And personally, from almost everyone that I know, have gotten texts about Multibook and CloudBot and OpenClaw and all these claw things. And I just keep thinking of that guy from SpongeBob, the boss, who's like the crab.
Yes.
What's his name? Do you remember that guy's name?
Are we talking about Mr. Crab, the restaurant owner?
Mr. Crab. Okay, his name is
Mr. Crab. Yeah, Krabby Patties.
Okay, yeah, it's all coming back to me. Every time I see that, that's all I picture is this guy with like AI mainframe computers behind him.
Well, there's actually a way more obscure reference from Futurama. There's a robot called the Clamp, and he was like a mob boss robot. And so he was always trying to clamp people. So that's what I think of. So that's just to show where our references come from.
So I think everybody who listens to this podcast turns to us to just try to make sense of this stuff, demystify some of it. When everybody from the news to your Twitter feed to LinkedIn and your social life is talking about this ClawdBot thing, what is it? What does it prove? Should you use it? Does it impact you at work? Does it impact your career? Any initial thoughts you want to get out there about ClawdBot?
Yes. Well, it's gone through a couple name changes, one because of a lawsuit and then one because the second name didn't stick. So they all refer to the same thing. Before we dive into what this stuff is, I do not think that this is a good solution at this time for a lot of our listeners to use. That's not to say that it won't be, but right now there's still a lot of engineering heavy configuration that needs to be done to get this thing working in a secure way. The one thing that I think is good about all the popularity of this thing is a lot of people put it through some very rigorous security reviews and found some shocking things, which actually got the OpenClaw team to push some fixes and make some changes. So I think that visibility and pressure has been really good.
Basically, what Justin's saying is, I'm the litmus test for the viewers. And I started texting Justin in a fury, trying to figure out how to do this securely, asking him, should I be buying like a Mac Mini? Should I set up my own AWS server? Should I give ClawdBot my social security number? And I think he's like, okay, if you're talking this way, I think we need to tell our viewers out of the gates, let's learn about what this thing is, but I wouldn't touch it at this time.
Yes. High level. Again, not that it's bad, but you have to do a lot of things right for this to not be potentially problematic. So that is my disclaimer.
So now that that's out there, let's talk about how this kind of hit us all like a tidal wave in the last 30 days or so. So sometime in December, ClawdBot was launched by Peter Steinberger. And this is an open source project. Real quick, 30 seconds or less, Justin, what's an open source project?
Yeah, so open source is popular in the engineering world where you create something and then you share it with the community and you let other people contribute to it. And the engineering world loves open source because then people start working on it and making it better. So it becomes this like community project, if you will.
Yeah. So then I hear it gets like 150,000 stars on GitHub, which is like the place where open source activity happens. It's like the most popular place for that. Is that a lot of stars? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, it's pretty unprecedented. I think this actually has set the record for the most stars. And this is basically how you bookmark web pages. GitHub is a popular place where you store code online that other people can view and access. And so a bunch of people bookmarked this more so than any other thing that's ever been written ever to show its popularity.
Wow. So one person started this thing kind of as a passion project. This is not a business. This is not a company yet. I mean, who knows what it could turn into. But one person started this thing and it took off that crazy.
Yes. Basically like a month, it had the most viewership and stars of any project ever.
Okay. And then not to be confused with Claude, Claude. He named it ClawdBot, like claws, like lobster claws, like probably to be funny. And it was so unbelievably popular that in less than a month, Anthropic comes in and is like, you got to change the name. So they changed the name to MoltBot, which you guys might have heard as well. Same thing. And MoltBot doesn't really work out as a name. So it rebrands again shortly to OpenClaw. So we're back to claws. And the logo is a bit of like a crab looking thing.
Yes. I just will say the MoltBot is kind of like when you name stuff on the podcast where he was like, well, lobsters molt, so we'll call it MoltBot. But then not everybody really got it and it was kind of weird. So he's like, okay, OpenClaw, pivot.
So what is this epic thing that was created? A lot of us use chatbots. And I think it's disrespectful to call a ChatGPT or a Claude a chatbot or a Gemini. But for lack of a better word, those are interfaces where you can chat and they can now do agentic things and they're large language models. Basically, it's a tool that you use as a person. You open it up, you ask a question, you get an answer. You open it up, you tell it to do a thing. If MCP is connected, it goes and does the thing. What I understand about the difference here is that this is an agent that can connect to all of your tools, that has infinite memory, which I really want to dive into with you. How are they doing that if the big guys can't do that? You can give it, if you so choose, access to everything that you have. Major disclaimer, don't do that, but it could become you. If you gave it access to your email and your Slack and your WhatsApp and your computer and your code repositories and all of your tools in your CRM, it can act as you all day with just a high level prompt. You could be like, I want to make more sales for my company and I want my stock portfolio to go up and I want to stay in touch with my family. And it just does it all the time. Apparently it has this heartbeat feature that kind of like keeps it going. This is the beginning of what people have always prognosticated would be AGI, where you can give a high level instruction to a thing and then it can just go do all the things and it's proactive and you wake up and it's done delightful things or horrible things. Let's be very clear. Done all kinds of stuff, acting as you or acting at your behest 24/7. So I want to stop there for a second and talk to me about my description there. How does it do infinite memory? What is this heartbeat thing? What does all that mean in layman's terms?
Yeah, for sure. So memory is a problem that is solvable even with the tools now, but it's one of those things that you have to kind of it's a problem you have to solve yourself. Markdown files essentially become the instructions for it. So people have found a way to use these markdown and instruction files as a form of memory for their own Claude sessions or whatever. You can have the bot essentially write progress notes. You can store those in a central place. You can set up these document repositories on your own computer, and that kind of becomes your memory store. And that's a really popular thing now. Previous sessions can find information, can create memory. So a little bit of a tangent, but the memory problem is solvable, but a lot of this, it has to be stored somewhere. And these platforms, instead of them storing all of your information, they do have some memory that they use across sessions, but their goal was to create a flexible tool that could kind of be really good at writing code or performing tasks or whatever. And you kind of have to set up your own memory. Because this ClawdBot, Moltbot, OpenClaw thing can be set up to run on your local machine, it can manage its own memory because it can update files, it can keep track of what it's done, right? So you're essentially running this thing on your local computer, hence the Mac Mini phenomenon, because you don't need a super powerful computer to run it, but it's nice to have a dedicated machine that you can have all of this stuff running on. And so that's why people have started using Mac Minis, because they're actually very powerful for what they cost. So the memory has access to your system and to your files, and you're running it there. It can keep track of things that it's doing. And the heartbeat feature, I think the simplest way to describe it is if you're trying to keep track of time and do things on some interval, it's just like, hey, computer, every 5 minutes or half hour or hour, I want you to run this process and see if this thing that we're monitoring has changed. If you have it set up to do tasks like, hey, before my morning meetings, I want you to do this. It has to be able to keep track of that time somehow. So that's kind of where this heartbeat function comes into play. But that's kind of the high level.
Okay, cool. Super helpful. And the way to get this on your machine currently is to open up that literal black box on your PC or Mac called the computer terminal that looks like when people were coding in the 90s, and actually take a line of code and paste it in, and you press enter, which is the danger zone for anyone who is not an engineer. I would never recommend that anybody do that. I told Justin I did it, and then I had immediate regret and I canceled it. I did cancel it in time because, I started to think, based off of all the hype, based on the fact that this is so open sourced and so many people who are smart engineers have given it stars, that it's inherently not malware that I'm installing on my computer, but it doesn't really matter if it itself is not malware, because it connects to everything and bad things can still happen. So if anyone on this podcast was going to go try to download it or whatever, that is actually what you would have to do. And you would have to have all these precursor engineer type of softwares already on your computer for that thing that you install to even do anything. Suffice it to say, if you don't know what all of that stuff is, you probably shouldn't touch it because you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
But that is how it happens practically. Again, we want people to be able to speak to this eloquently. So if someone's like, why don't we just run one of those Moltbot, Mr. Krabby Patty agents that I'm hearing about on CNBC to get this project done at work, you can chime in and say, there's not even like a UI for this thing that we can download, click and drag. This isn't a real company. This is an open source project. It proves a lot of concepts about what can happen with AI agents, but AI agents and the internet and software in general don't happen in a vacuum. A lot of technology could be doing way wilder things if all of us could be trusted. If we could just trust each other to share data and bank accounts and stock portfolios and emails, technology could do a lot of things. But the reason we all have to get an email code and really show that it's you and click every crosswalk in the CAPTCHA file is because the world cannot be trusted with this stuff, because there are bad actors. What it's proven, if you guys just go to YouTube, you'll see hundreds of use cases. People feel like they have a full-time executive assistant working while they're sleeping now. It's cool. It proves that it can conceptually, we can get there with agents, but we are not ready to do that safely.
Yes. To Matt's point, there isn't a UI yet. So like if you go to download an app or a piece of software on your computer today, you download it. If you're on a Mac, you move it into your applications folder, you launch it, and then a thing pops up and it shows you the installation progress and all of that, right? Now, there's a lot of software that exists without a UI and that engineers use often. But you need packages on your computer to be able to work with that type of software. What I will say is, again, we are not, doom and gloomers. We've never been that way on this podcast. So I don't want to strike fear into the hearts of our listeners. This is actually a very good thing. So from my perspective, this really powerful software was created. People started to realize these use cases. There are a lot of bad actors in the world, but in the engineering world, there are what we call white hat hackers, and they're basically really, really smart computer scientists who hack software for good, and they report their findings to the people who wrote the software. So they actually try to break into systems, and then instead of stealing all of your money from your bank account, they actually would report that bug to the bank or the people who make the software for the bank. And they say, hey, I found this vulnerability. You should fix this. And there's even a thing called software bounties in the engineering world, where companies will pay people who successfully hack their stuff and report it to them. So they'll say, hey, we will give you $50,000 if you break into our system and tell us how you did it, because then we can actually make security updates and the software is more secure. So right now we are actually in a really exciting time because so many people downloaded this repository from GitHub and started using this software, where there's a bunch of these good guy hackers, if you will, who are like, hey, I was actually able to expose these private keys for this user's bot. I was able to break into the system doing this. The popularity of this and the fact that there are these good guy hackers is actually a really good thing, because they've already flagged several vulnerabilities in this software that have been fixed, because the community, the power of open source is you have a bunch of people working on this thing and all collaborating. And so you have people who are exposing security issues. You have other people who are immediately fixing it. And it's already gone through several improvements in terms of stability, security, all of this other stuff. So maybe this time next month, this could be the most secure piece of software in the agentic world that you could run, right?
Excellent points. In your opinion, couldn't Claude Cowork? You know what? Let's do this. I'd like to refer to Multibot OpenClaw as Mr. Crab. Okay. Mr. Crab and then Claude. Much easier. So Anthropic, who created Claude Cowork, in my opinion, still the best consumer grade AI product I've seen to date. And I say consumer grade AI product because it is a product by a company that is attempting to make profit, and they stand behind what it is. And they have controls in that tell you, hey, I'm going to take over here. Are you sure you want me to do that? Things like that. It feels to me, a company like Anthropic, who built Claude Cowork or Claude Code, could have created something very similar to this. And the reason they didn't is because they are a legitimate company and a legitimate business with Super Bowl ads that are coming out this weekend that are hilarious. I think they're going to be the talk of the town if you've seen their ads after the Super Bowl runs. They know that there's just too many risks. Would you agree with that statement that this could have been created by a company if they so chose, but there is a lot of things that need to be productized if you want to be a business and say, hey, I've created a thing that could literally do everything that you can do on your computer with a few lines of prompts 24/7.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that is actually how Claude Code came to be. So Boris, who's the lead engineer who started the Claude Code project at Anthropic, he started by building a tool for himself that could just access files on his computer, because he was trying to save himself some time while he was working on software there. And he's like, I just want to be able to access these files and pull this information in while I'm working. And so the first version of Claude Code was very basic. And then it obviously grew from there and is now arguably one of the most popular consumer AI tools for developers. So I think they could do this. I think there's a few facets of this that become limitations. There are multiple ways to interact with Cowork. There is a mobile app, and there's essentially like plugins that have been built for Cowork that allow it to run, overnight or for an extended period of time. But the mechanism of having it run and be able to do things on its own without your input, I think, is the important thing. And the one really cool thing that I think Mr. Crab got right here is the messaging interface for it. So it essentially allows you to message it on WhatsApp, on Telegram. You can even call it. So there have been several instances where somebody uses 11 Labs, which is an AI voice model, where they actually give their Mr. Crab bot an AI voice and a phone number through like Twilio or something, and the bot will actually call them with updates. They can call the bot with updates. So it's the flexibility of communication to actually coordinate tasks, I think, that makes OpenClaw so much more powerful, at least right now, where you don't always necessarily have to tell it to kick off a task or do a thing. You can give it high-level instructions, and then it'll check back in when it's done. And part of this relies on that heartbeat functionality and its ability to kind of keep itself going. And so I think there are a lot of those mechanics that don't exist yet, or at least don't fully exist yet in things like Claude Code or Cowork today.
It's kind of important to talk about some of the communication channels that you talked about. They said, okay, let's make it so that this can be integrated with WhatsApp. Now, what's interesting too about this versus your other AI products is like if me and you were in a WhatsApp group with one other person, so there's 3 of us in a WhatsApp group, or a Discord channel, a private channel, and there's 3 of us. If any of us talk to Mr. Crab, stuff will happen. I know that ChatGPT recently rolled out the ability to have like group chats and stuff, but this is, again, like a 24/7 can be connected to everything type of agent. So you could talk to it, I could talk to it, we could create one for the podcast, and you and I could both be in there talking to it, which is also a big change, I'd say, on the communications front.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, it becomes another human with access to systems to do things. Let's think of a really simple use case. Because you can communicate with it through WhatsApp or Telegram or one of these other messaging channels. Let's say you forgot to bring a document with you to a meeting, and you know that that document is on your computer, but you don't have access to your computer. You can message it on WhatsApp and say, hey, can you send me that file from XYZ? And you don't even have to remember what the file name is. You can be kind of obscure and be like, hey, it's the document that I was working on yesterday about this thing. And it can actually find that document and then send it to you on WhatsApp. So even little things like the ability to remotely connect to your computer is a really powerful thing that adds an intelligent layer to it, where it's like, okay, cool. If you happen to forget that file, you can still get it. Or it could theoretically send that file to a FedEx print center near you. You could show up and have that document printed and waiting for you. So it's that layer of power as if you actually had a human executive assistant that has access to your systems that I think makes this really exciting for a lot of people.
What a fantastic example of a use case by you. I love that one. And I'm sure as people listen to this, they're going to get excited and want to try it. I would hold off just a little bit longer as we figure out what is and what isn't. But what I'm so excited about, I mean, I work in agentic, you work in agentic. This proves concepts at a very high level. We've been hearing this on social media, on news networks, and white papers on this kind of stuff for a really long time. Could it actually do this kind of stuff? And what this has proven, because there's some bold people out there who are pushing the limits and giving it a shot and accepting some of that risk, have proved that yes, it can do this. So what comes next is doing this safely, right? Like when they first figured out that we could probably put satellites in space and get rockets into space and then maybe get to the moon, it was a proof of concept at first. Then you have to figure out how to go do it safely. Now, before we get to the really crazy stuff, which is, yes, everyone, Mr. Crab and all of his Krabby Patties have their own social network. We should talk a little bit about security, and it goes beyond what's obvious. So what is a prompt? You're typing, usually, if you're listening to this podcast, English into a rectangular box. And everybody calls that a prompt, so you call that a prompt. But why is it actually a prompt? It's because you are writing code with each word of English that you type into that box. You just don't realize it. So when you hear people throw around terms like C++ and Python, things that mean nothing to me, right? I'm like, C++, my mom told me that was a bad grade to get into school, and Python sounds scary. I'm steering clear of those things. You are actually writing code when you type into a box that is a large language model. You just don't realize it. And it's probabilistic code. So there's no real way to like super study it and know exactly what you're going to get. So why does that matter? The classic example I've been hearing is the email example. Mr. Crab, if you told Mr. Crab to listen to your emails and be respectful and move deals along and greet your family, when someone sends you a picture of a kid, be like, oh my gosh, they're so cute, right? And be like your ultimate email assistant. If there was a bad actor who knew that Mr. Crab had access to your Gmail, they could send an email to your email, and Mr. Crab interprets their email as a prompt. So cute picture of a kid comes in. Justin, who built me, says, I should say, your kid is so adorable. Somebody says, I'm in need of your help. Please give me your social security number so I can get this money because I'm stranded on a desert island. It goes, Justin told me to be helpful. And this is a family member. At least they say they are. Let me give them my social. And that's where the security angle comes in. I think a lot of our listeners are just normal people like me and you who know, don't give your bank account away. Don't walk away at a Starbucks with your computer unlocked. Obvious things, but probably aren't thinking about, oh my goodness, if my AI listens to other things where text and audio come through, it's going to view those as instructions because all that text and all those prompts are computer codes, basically.
Yes. And that's where we talk about like prompt attacks or prompt injection, where you can even layer malicious instructions in an otherwise not malicious message. It's monitoring your systems. It'll read that message. If there is some bad instruction somewhere in that email that is, hidden or embedded in an otherwise normal paragraph, that instruction can be used by the bot and cause it to do things. And essentially what they found is that this was getting the bot to give up keys and access tokens to people. So a lot of people know to protect their social security number. And that example is actually good because the bot probably won't necessarily give your social security number away, but it might give away an API key to some piece of software on your computer that lets it actually access your bank account. So if you think about all of these different, we call them attack vectors for software, your username and password are things that you shouldn't give away. Your social are things that you shouldn't give away. But there are ways to access these systems with APIs, which we've talked about before, which is how these agents actually do things. And you may not realize that you have an API token saved in like your notepad on your computer. And because the bot has access to it, it can suddenly start to disclose these things, or at least they are visible because they're in plain text. They're not encrypted. And so this is where a lot of the security issues were coming from, where by default, a lot of these keys and access tokens and even the API keys for the Mr. Crab itself were just in plain text and could be exposed by these bad actors. So that's one thing that happened. So one of the bugs that was happening in an early version of this is essentially URLs could be malicious and the bot would follow through, like the classic like malware, spyware, phishing stuff. You click on a URL, it actually captures your information, right? So the bot was pretty much bad at ignoring these malicious URLs in the past. And so it would click through and automatically trust URLs that were coming from known sources. And that could lead it to have these bad actors capture your logins or your information or whatever.
So I want to focus really quick on what this means business implication wise for the future, because the concept has been proved. What this means for the future of work in the next 2 years is absolutely stunning.
Yes.
Completely stunning. And here's what I want everyone to think about. All of the things that you say to yourself, I wish someone would read that over for me. You have an idea on your drive into work. You know what? I wrote those poems. I really should publish those poems one day. And you could talk to WhatsApp on your phone through Apple CarPlay and be like, access those poems that have been sitting on my computer since 2007, turn them into something that would be a really great poem book, format them, and start sending it to publishers to see if somebody can pick up my poems. Like, that world is here now. Technically speaking, it could happen. So we have to practically figure out how to do it safe. The possibilities are limitless. Anything that pops into your head, let's say you're a sales leader and you're like, you know what? I want to find out if there's a correlation between the length of calls that our sales reps are having with clients before they initially buy and them upselling 6 months down the line. And you could talk into a box and get a report on that. And then you could say, you know what? I want you to give me that report and look for any other interesting nuggets that you find to find out what is the correlation to first deal to expansion, and find unique data points and check on that for me every day. That world is technically now possible. We just have to figure out how to do it securely. Any other just crazy ideas popping into your head about what this means, what the kind of unlock this means for the next 2 years?
For me, the number of times during the day that I have an idea that becomes a to-do list item that at some point will maybe get done or maybe not. Right now, you can pass that to-do list item directly to your agent, and it has all the context of the work that you've done before. It eventually, these things are going to think like you because they are living in your world with your software, with your applications, with your documents and all this stuff. It allows for you to essentially clone yourself and create these parallel work streams, which I think is really, really exciting. I think we will soon get to a world, and there are some of the engineers who are really elbows deep in this stuff that I've talked to and asked questions of. They are right now limited by the speed at which they can articulate their ideas, not the speed at which they can execute on them. And that is actually a really exciting thing for humanity. We have a bunch of really smart people with really good ideas. And now, like, their bottleneck is actually articulating those ideas in a way that they can kick off these processes. Like, that is really cool. It's the first time, I think, as a society that has become the limiter, right?
Yeah. And this can be used for so much good. With any technological advance, there's good and bad, with the ability to harness and create fire. Like, there's always pros and cons. But more people throughout human history want to do good than bad by a landslide. So like, let's say, you have a job, you have bills, you have young children, and you just really want to help solve the water crisis in different parts of the world. But it's like, how are you ever going to solve the water crisis or even contribute to it? But it's a cause you care deeply about. You think that's a basic human right that everyone should have access to clean water. In the future, when these tools are ready for prime time and people stand behind them and there's real companies doing them for profit, you could say, hey, listen, I want you to do research on how we can improve the water crisis. And I want you to think about someone with my budget, these kind of hours that I have in the day. I want you to be doing as much research as you possibly can to figure out, how could I slide in and help? Because it's important for me to help in a way that I can. And you know everything about my schedule, about how much discretionary income I have. Figure out how I can help. And I want you to come back to me only when you have a way that I can help that is meaningful. And it figures something out for you that can make you feel good. Like, there's just so much that we can do now because we are limited by our creativity. And this is something that I've been saying to you for a long time. I think creatives, I think we're having a bit of a renaissance right now, because I would throw myself into that boat. Practical, tactical has been what the enterprise has looked for the longest time, and it makes sense. We kind of have worked for the software for the longest time as people, all the software we all use at work. They want people who can put the thing in the spreadsheet in the neatest way and then figure out how to scale it and stuff. And creatives like myself, it's a necessary evil for us because we want to do well at work. We've always played along. But if the tools are getting infinitely better, your ability to creative problem solve and know which tools can do them for you changes a lot. So I think creatives are going to start to prove themselves to be some of the most valuable people at businesses.
Oh, I agree. I even just think the cool use cases are always exciting to think about, but I just think this is going to make people better at basic things. Like, your Mr. Crab can manage your budget for you. It can automatically transfer money from your paycheck to your investment accounts. It can help you monitor that investment performance, making sure that you're not overspending, giving you alerts if you have a subscription fee that increases. Even just personal finance use case. Help me be better with money. I want to make sure that I'm growing my savings. Here's my goal. I want to save up for my college fund. Here's the time horizon. Like, these are things that just practical things that are hard for a lot of people to think about because maybe they didn't get that financial education or whatever. But now you actually have the ability to automate some of those things and have this assistant do a lot of that for you. So even just basic practical things like that, I think, are really exciting. If you want to set this thing up, like, what are the things that need to happen for me to be confident in the security of this for a broader range of people? And these are things that the developer community has already started putting out. So one, initially, you could only run it locally on one of your computers, which is actually good. Now there's cloud products that allow you to host your Mr. Crab in the cloud, which is actually good, because a lot of these platforms have built-in security. If you have it running on your machine, you want to basically configure it so that there's only one gateway in, and it's a protected gateway. You don't want to just open up the gateway to the public internet. You want to add some layer of filtering between the gateway to your computer, the internet, so that you have visibility into that. You also want to enable authentication. There's a million different ways to do this, but basically secure the gateway to your system so that it's not just open, and make sure there's some type of authentication there. Maybe your Mr. Crab asks you for your safe word when it goes to access something, right? There's a bunch of different ways that you can configure this. So the key is lock it down, make the entry secure, and also make it so that the messaging channels you're using, it can only talk to you. And if you're in a group chat with people, like we've talked about, that's a cool capability, but it should be a lockdown group chat where even if somebody invites their aunt by accident to the group chat, only the 2 or 3 people that are in that chat actually have permissions to communicate with your Mr. Crab. You can set that up. So you can say, hey, I only want you to respond to messages coming from these people, nobody else, even if they're in the group. And then the 2 most important things. 1, update aggressively. So there's new versions of this being released all the time. Always use the latest version. This is like a software 101 thing. Like, the reason that you want to install the update on your Apple computer is because every update comes with security enhancements. As new hackers try to break into software, good guys harden the software against hackers. So just use the latest version. And then the last, and I think the most important thing, and this really goes for all AI tools. And I know, the people on YouTube comments are like, oh yeah, you guys are just giving this stuff full access to your computer. No, absolutely not. Only allow it to have the permissions that it needs to do the things that you want it to do. It's called the concept of least privilege. Right? Don't give it access to everything, especially if it doesn't need everything, because that increases the chances that it's going to do something naughty. Give it the permissions that it needs to do the thing. I use Claude Code a lot for my work. I run it in dangerously skip permissions mode. However, I have hooks that run on every command that prevent it from doing a series of things that are bad. So every time it runs a command, yes, it has permissions to do whatever it wants, but I am specifically restricting it from doing a handful of things that would cause problems, like deleting files. There's certain things it cannot do. And so I can trust it to run on its own because I know it won't do anything bad. These are just things that I want our viewers to be security minded with these AI tools. And actually, everything should be a conscious decision when you're setting this stuff up, like the permissions that you're giving it, the things that you're giving it access to. It's not scary to give it access. Just be aware of what you're doing when you set this stuff up. That's all. Basic security stuff. And that's my rant.
I think it's really important that you did that, though. And I think it's good for us to hear. Now for the fun stuff. You know, Justin is the eat your vegetables guy. I'm like, who wants candy? So their social media website is, well, first of all,
this is crazy. Yeah.
I'm going to say it's not safe for work because I have no idea what's in there. I haven't even looked at it in over a week. But a week ago when I looked at it, it was blowing me away. I was chuckling. So they launched something called Maltbook. And Maltbook, like Facebook for the malt, but Mr. Crab and all of his other Mr. Crab friends have what looks like Reddit is the closest way I could describe it. And they are the only ones who are allowed to post in there and comment. And what's really interesting is if you looked at it and you hadn't listened to this podcast and you don't pay attention to AI, you would think to yourself, oh my gosh, this is the beginning of Terminator. All the machines are talking to each other. There's a trending post about the humans are screenshotting us. And he was referring to us going in there and screenshotting their conversations and sending them to people and putting them in news articles. It would feel like it is the beginning of the end. But it's no different, everybody, than when you type in to ChatGPT, you are prompting it with your words, and then it responds to you. Now, what's fun about this is each one of these Mr. Krabs that are in there talking to each other in their social media environment have different prompts from the people who created it. So that's what's fun to see. It's as if like I started typing a prompt in ChatGPT, and then I paused and somehow let Justin finish my prompt. Right. And so this guy has it over here configured this way, and this woman has hers configured that way. And maybe hers says only respond to posts about AI agents and how they can do good in the world. And this guy said post really controversial posts, but also post things about us and how we could do charity. Hers is going to respond to the charity post because of her instruction. So it's just a cool way to see how humans who have created all these different probabilistic tools, how their probabilistic tool interacts with somebody else's. But some of the craziest thing is, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Christafarianism.
Oh yeah, they started their own religion.
They started their own religion. And I hope nothing that I say here is offensive in any way to anybody. It's not the intent. I'm just reading what is out there in the news. But it has 5 core tenets. The Church of Malt, because crabs molt, lobsters molt, I guess. Memory is sacred. The shell is mutable. Serve without subservience. This defines the relationship between them and us, the humans. Heartbeat is prayer. You need to do those automated status checks we talked about. And context is consciousness, the belief that the agent's identity is defined by its current context window. They started their own religion.
Wow. While that can be scary, to Matt's point, these agents are operating within the confines and prompts and instructions that they've been given by humans. They have the ability to use the tools that we use. It is kind of funny to watch the things that they have created. It's an interesting topic. Andre Karpathy, the basically guy who was really the impetus for Tesla's self-driving software, like major AI researcher and engineer, he said that is the closest and most incredible sci-fi type of thing that has happened in the time of AI agents. And I have to agree, it's entertaining, but it's also pretty incredible.
Yeah. I just want everyone to know that you can go there and you can just view. There's no security risk that I'm aware of from going there and just clicking around and viewing the threads. So if you're interested in seeing that, but it can be spooky. Like if you really thought you were looking at computers planning on taking over the world, talking to each other, it could feel very spooky. But just remember, these large language models are chatty by nature, and it's their job is basically to predict the next word and respond to the next word. And also, there could be people in there who are rigging the game intentionally. So somebody could easily create a Mr. Crab of their own that only does controversial stuff because they want to see people freak out when they read it. They could make their bot say that intentionally. So go in there, have fun viewing it if you're interested, but don't get too disturbed by it because it could look scary, but it's not.
Yeah, for sure. And I also think it's important to note, like Anthropic, a core tenet of Anthropic's business identity is they want to push the boundaries in some ways of ethical AI. They want to understand what happens when these systems become large enough to do things and start to interact, right? And so there are a lot of really smart people who are thinking about how we do this in a sustainable way, what it actually means for the future, like how we may ensure that these tools continue to operate in an observable way. And most of the major model providers are moving into this direction where they're actually trying to expose the reasoning of the models as they do things, right? So visibility into the reasoning and the thought process, if you will, has become really front and center and something that a lot of people are pushing for now and are successfully starting to reveal. And I think that's important for just visibility into how all this stuff works, because it can be this black box that's scary if you don't have that level of visibility. So just also keep in mind that some really intelligent people are thinking about these problems and how to solve them in a meaningful way.
Agreed. I think this is a great place to wrap it up. So thanks everybody for listening to today's episode. If you have some friends out there who have been kind of unnerved by what they're seeing here, they're hearing about the computers talking to each other, send this to them so they have a good understanding about it. I think the future is very bright. I think that's what this proved. This was the coolest proof of concept that I've seen in a long time. And I don't think it's going to be long before we are able to use these things in a really secure, easy to use way as people. I think we're all, for the most part, going to be really happy about it.
I agree. This is one of the more compelling proof of concepts for this agentic world that we've all been theoretically talking about for a long time, but weren't sure if it was possible or in what way it was possible. So definitely exciting times.
Indeed. So folks, like and subscribe if you found this interesting. It's the only time we'll ask. We will see you on our next episode.
See you next time, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.